Hi, sorry I am a couple minutes late. Had some technical difficulties getting started today. Today, for anyone who has not been paying attention to my feed at all, or somehow my posts haven't been getting in there, today is my book birthday for my latest book, The Undine's Tear. I'm super excited. This book is the reason why I wanted to become a novelist. It's my fourth book published, and I've been working on it since 2010. So I'm really excited to finally see it going out in the world and hearing people's reactions. Yeah, so I'm not going to talk too much about the story behind the book today. I am going to be doing a reading of one chapter from the book in just a few minutes. But just before I do, there's just couple really quick things I want to tell you to make sure so you can get in on the book birthday fun. First of all, on my website on the books page, so at www.talinawinters.com/undines-tear, there are some extras you can get. If you're not quite sure if you're gonna like the book, first of all, you can go check out the description there, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a minute. But there's also the first 5 chapters that you can just download for free, and the first 5 chapters give you a pretty good idea of what the rest of the book is going to be like and gets you started on it. And yeah, and then the other thing is, I love music, as most of you know, so I've actually put together a curated playlist, well, for the last 2 books, well, for Finding Heaven and this book, I've put that out. But I put together this curated playlist, and I call it a playlist soundtrack. Now, it's not meant to be listened to while you're reading the book, but the idea of the playlist is that it kind of takes you through, like, it represents the characters, it represents the plot. So once you know the story, you can go on the playlist and you can listen through and go, oh yeah, I hear that. I hear what she was representing there, and it's a fun, upbeat playlist for the most part too. So even if you haven't read the book yet, I'm sure you'll find something on there to enjoy. So go to the book page, check that out. The other thing is that there are a couple of giveaways happening today. The first one, I want to mention my awesome, amazing friend, Melissa Keister, who she is also an author, a fantasy author, and she has written a fantastic book called Eliora, which is about and this is in a secondary world, about a girl who kind of gets caught up in a bad lifestyle, but lots of good things come from it. And she has just blown me away. She's offering a giveaway for anyone who buys my book and also tags or likes my Facebook page, and there's something else. Anyways, but what she's gonna do is and I'll tell you where to go in a second. She's going to actually send free copies of her book, free shipping and everything, to 5 people in a draw that she's running over the next week. So go to Melissa's page. It's www.facebook.com/author Melissa Keister. And Keister is spelled Keaster. And you can get in on that draw. Also, I will be posting a giveaway to my Facebook page a little bit later today, probably pretty soon after I'm done the video. And I'm not going to tell you more about it than that right now, but I'm also going to be posting a giveaway. And also, I'm trying something new with this book. I am actually selling copies of the book from my own website. First of all, there's a digital rights management free ebook you can get delivered through BookFunnel, so you can get that directly from me. But I'm also offering copies of both the paperback and the hardcover of The Undine's Tear, signed and personalized if you want. I've tried to keep the shipping low, so you can actually go there and purchase directly from me if you want. Again, that's on my book page at www.talinawinters.com winters.com/Undine's Tier. And the very last thing is that I've also actually already published a standalone prequel to the series. The series is The Rise of the Grigori. Undine's Tier is book number 1 of 3. However, I've got a prequel for one of the main characters in Undine's Tier named Zale, and it's called The Water Boy. And I'm holding up a picture frame of the cover because it's ebook only. It's available for free to my newsletter subscribers. So if you go to my website and you go to contact, you can sign up for my newsletter and it gets sent to you right away and you can enjoy it. It's a great little read, super fun, and Zale is a fun character. So I hope you enjoy that. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna get started reading in a second here after I take a quick drink of water. Okay, first of all, I should tell you what the Undine's Tier is about. So the Undine's Tier is about a post-Atlantean society of merfolk. I've called them Undines because that's not gender specific. And Undines just means elemental water creature. And what they have to do is they've lost the ability to produce their own males, so they have to capture and enslave human males to survive. And the main character, Calandra, is one of their most powerful healers in 3,000 years. And she is expected to heal the main stone that protects their island. But the problem she has is that all the healers, all the really powerful healers in their history have gone crazy and have caused some really horrible destruction. So she's trying to avoid going crazy, and she's trying to save her people. In the chapter that I'm about to read you, whoops, sorry. The chapter I'm about to read you is chapter 6. Sorry, it's chapter 8. And in this chapter, Calandra, she's almost 18. She's not quite, and she's almost graduated from the Royal Academy. And when she graduates, she'll have earned her healer's rings in the 3 disciplines they have. But she just found out that her best friend Tanny, with whom she shares an empathic connection, might be hurt. And so she's really scared. She's rushing down from the Opal Palace, which is at the top of the island, top of a hill, down to the bay to figure out what's going on. She also knows that there's a dolphin calf and its mother that's also hurt. And along with her, she's going with Thea, her kind of foster mother, because her own mother abandoned her as a baby. And she's also the Royal Academy headmistress. And then they're also accompanied by Garrick and Osaze, who are they're called doulos, or douloi, I should say. So a doulos is what they call their male slaves. And they don't just enslave them, they actually mind enslave them, like sirens that hypnotize. So they've got Osaze, they've got Garrick. Garrick is Thea's husband, and Osaze has recently become Calandra's bodyguard. However, they were friends as children before he was redeemed, they call it. And she had promised him that she would find a way to free him. But it's been 5 years now that she's been trying to find a way to do this and hasn't succeeded. So here we go. Hopefully that's all you need to understand what's going on here. The streets of Sereniapolis were swollen with festival day traffic. Brightly dressed ladies and their families coming or going from paying their respects to the mother at the temple of Atargatis in the lower city. Savory smells and last-minute haggling between household servants and the street merchants vending food for the evening feast filled the air. Children swam in the canal running along the outer edge of the Street of Pearls, the main road that defined each gently curved tier of the city. Beyond the city stretched the Paradise Valley, with its rolling green hills, patchwork fields, and irrigation canals flowing down to the Atlantic Ocean. Calandra bit back her frustration as she walked next to Thea along the flagstone sidewalks that would take them to the lower city. She normally loved the opportunity to be out on the streets during Pansalinos. Even without the festive atmosphere, the view of the white stone city, with its canals and waterfalls, and the eroded black rock spires that guarded the valley would be enough to lift her spirits. But now, as Osaze cleared a path through the bustling crowd for her and Thea, with Garrick a vigilant escort behind, she resented every obstacle that delayed her from reaching Tanny for even a second. Garrick's gaze roved about in an unfocused way, his Dictys staff doubling as a walking stick. They hurried the mile down to the bay, taking the more direct route of the bridges and steep flights of stairs between levels rather than traveling by canal boat or rickshaw down the 4 tiers of the city. Adrenaline had subverted Calandra's fatigue, and a storm thundered in her heart the entire way. Tanny's turbulent emotions, usually something she could notice and keep at a slight distance, like looking at the contents of a clear glass jar on a shelf, were all she could think about. By the time they reached the brick-paved square that hosted both the Court of the Redeemed and the Physic House, Calandra was convinced that Tanny was on death's door. She feared that she would be required to save her friend's life in order to earn her Physic ring, but she didn't think she could do it. If that's what Thea asks of me, I'll... Calandra didn't know what she'd do. If Tanny were injured, she couldn't refuse to heal her. She'd hate herself forever. Her pulse raced, and she prayed fervently for the injured siren to be someone else. Then she punished herself mentally. A failure to heal another woman would not be much better than losing Tanny. But if it were someone else, at least she could step aside and delay her Physic trial for another time, letting more experienced and assured hands do what must be done. I forgot to mention that she's recently had some failures, and so it's shaken her confidence. What other time? The Heartstone healing ceremony is in a month. You can't afford to be a coward, Calandra Cordelphine. There is no time. The security hut in front of the Physic House came into view, and the bands of anxiety around Calandra's lungs tightened. Are you sure I am ready for this, Thea? Thea kept her urgent pace, but tilted her head at her Suraki. How many live cells remained in that fern when you began? Calandra shrugged. I don't know. 1, maybe as many as 5. For a moment, Thea looked stunned. 5 cells? She shook her head. Remarkable. Calandra put a hand on her mentor's arm. A fern is not a rabbit, Descala, and a rabbit is not a person. How dare I try to heal anything greater than a scratched finger if my power could do more harm than good? Thea turned a level gaze toward her student. You have healed many rabbits and other animals too. I have seen you dissolve tumors from chickens, drain abscesses in dogs, clear colic in horses, and even cleanse the sacred fish of parasites. You know what you're doing, Calandra. You have a more acute sense of empathy than anyone I've ever known, your mother included. When you choose to use it. Calandra frowned, but nodded. Thea gave a nod like a judge's gavel and turned to speak to the siren on watch duty. Calandra gazed around to distract herself. Behind them, Osaze and Garrick stood motionless and emotionless, as was to be expected. There were only 2 structures on this street, standing opposite each other across an enormous pounded dirt square with no adornments or gardens of any kind. The square was practically barren now. Most of the fish vendor stalls near the quay had already closed so the merchants could spend the festival with their families. But next month, during the redemption moon, when the new crop of men was harvested, this place would be filled with half the city. On one side, the marble Court of the Redeemed far overshadowed the much plainer Physic House in grandeur. Its frieze depicted scenes that romanticized the commission of Atargatis to redeem men. Marble columns of muscular human men held up the roof on either side of the wide steps. In comparison, the simple straight lines, smooth face, understated moldings, and arched windows of the medical bay built out into the water made it look like a plain, matronly older sister who was too practical and busy to worry about the fripperies of adornment. Romea, the siren singer on watch duty, waved their group through the door into the stone building. Calandra's throat tightened as the moment of truth approached. The interior was cool, and with high ceilings and walls of pale stone. Afternoon sunlight angled through large copper-latticed windows along the wall and fell in dappled patches on the double row of empty beds, about 24 in total. A large wooden door in the wall to the right of the entrance hung open, and sounds of splashing came from the water pens in that part of the building. But what drew Calandra was not the sound, but her infallible interlocutor, the secret bond she shared with Tanny. She was soon running along the wooden walkway directly to where Tanny swam in a pan with her hands on a dolphin calf, surrounded by bloody water. Another siren whom Calandra didn't know by name was with her, helping her hold the calf still and humming a soothing melody. Tanny! Tanny twisted to look at her, not breaking contact with the calf. Heo's tending to Danai. Help me! A weight lifted from Calandra's heart. Tanny was fine. She ignored the pricking of her conscience that she should not be so relieved by that. Thea had caught up in time to hear Tanny's explanation. She took in the situation with the calf, who was missing a large piece of her side and was barely conscious, in a single glance. Calandra, you help here. I will see what has happened to Danai. Calandra nodded, not even bothering to strip her tunic as she turned and stepped down the ladder into the pen, disturbing the water as little as possible with her entry before changing to ichthys state. Tanny and the other singer moved aside to allow her access to the dolphin's head. They were doing as they had been trained, keeping the injured calf sedated with song. The calf's eyes were glazed, but that was probably from lack of blood, not sedation. Calandra cupped her hands on either side of the dolphin's face. As soon as she touched it, the full extent of the damage hit her in a blast that left her feeling nauseous. Tanny frowned in concern. What's wrong? She's just... Calandra looked at her friend, the void tickling at her mind even more forcefully than earlier. I don't know if I can do this, Tanny. Tanny laid one hand on Calandra's arm. Just do your best. We're here to help. Tell us what to do. Calandra looked at her friend, thinking. Physic healing required earth, water, and air, which she could easily handle, but also spirit, which was the area she struggled with most when healing animals. She'd managed to grasp spirit earlier with the plant, but that healing had required her to use the element very little. This was totally different. What if she couldn't grasp it again, or couldn't maintain control for the full duration of the task? Wait. Since sirens only used spirit, perhaps they could be of use. Calandra nodded and turned her attention to the calf. You, she said to the other woman, support her tail. The singer did as she was instructed. Calandra indicated that Tanny should come support the calf's head, and then she moved to the side where the injuries were the most serious. She looked at the wound with misgiving. Do you know what happened to her? Calandra asked. While the ways of nature were harsh, Undines did not usually interfere when one animal made prey of another. Each species had the right to eat. Humans, said the other siren, the disgust in her voice plain. They didn't even want her. They were after a school of fish, and she and her mother happened to be in the way. Calandra's gut clenched in rage. She frowned and glanced at Osaze, who had taken up position on the walkway, observing her with the detachment of the drugged. She shook her head, pushing away her fears of what he might do when she eventually released him. Would he be the same person she remembered? Or would he have become like the men they worked so hard to protect themselves from, the kind that would kill a dolphin and her calf while fishing and would murder you in your sleep if given the chance? No time for moral questions now. Right now, this baby's life needed saving, and she was the only one here who could do it. I need both of you to keep her calm, just as you have been doing. They nodded, taking up their humming once more. She closed her eyes and gently placed the tips of her fingers on the healthy skin on either side, as close to the wound as possible without causing further pain. Despite the siren's soothing song, she was nearly overwhelmed with the dolphin's panic and pain, and wrestled to regain control for a moment. A cool hand touched her forearm, and the emotional maelstrom subsided. She looked up to see Tanny with one hand on the dolphin's head, the other on Calandra's arm, never stopping the wordless vocalizing that calmed both the animal and herself. Be water, Tanny said, then went back to humming. Calandra gave a brief nod of thanks, then closed her eyes again. This time she could feel the energy of Tanny's spirit added to her own. The way of water explained how water could be likened to the energy used to end a conflict or manipulate the elements. Water can be guided, but water can also guide. It can fill a vessel, lift a vessel, or crush a vessel. It can rend holes in the earth in sudden violence or move mountains with the patience of ages. Spirit gives life, and water heals it. Be water. When Thea, or the other Discalas, explained what this meant, they always talked about flowing with the elements and guiding them to where they needed to be to bring balance. But Damon had taught her that to manipulate the elements, she had to bend them to her will like the ocean controlling a boat in a storm. In his time, he said, back in the days of Atlantis, the healers had merely to think about what they wanted, and they could close even the direst of wounds. She desperately wanted to command that kind of power. It made sense that techniques that no one had used in millennia were the only thing that would save her people, and she was determined to master them. She held her breath and reached for the elements. Earth, water, air. Now spirit, the key component she would need to see what she was doing. This time I'll do it. But spirit, the most basic element in the matrix of creation, would not be grasped. Instead, she once again fought the warm darkness that pulled at her senses, a whispered suggestion to release instead of hold. Was it her mind playing tricks on her? Her heart thumped in fear, and the darkness and exhaustion clouded her mind. Shaking her head, she focused her inner sight and tried again, adding the strength of Tanny's spirit to the claim. When it still didn't work, she glanced at the other siren, who stopped humming when she saw Calandra's frown. Lay your hand on my arm and share spirit with me, Calandra said. The siren nodded and did as she was asked. Calandra tried again with their triple cord of spirit brought to bear. Punching through the confusing darkness, she grabbed hold of the final element she needed, holding onto it with fierce determination. She stretched her awareness through her mother's broken tear pendant into the dolphin, which began thrashing and squealing in pain. Calandra, Tanny said, eyebrows bunched. Calandra frowned, concentrating, willing the flesh to heal. The calf bucked and heaved, screaming, Calandra! At Tanny's cry, Calandra pushed herself away and watched helplessly as the two sirens attempted to calm the baby once more. Thea appeared at her side, treading water with small movements of her greenish-silver tail, her silvery hair floating on the surface like a cloud and obscuring the clinging short gray linen bodice she'd stripped down to. She gave Calandra a troubled look, then swam over to the dolphin. Heo appeared on the calf's other side. At Thea's command, the four women placed their hands on the calf and closed their eyes. The dolphin relaxed and went silent. The flesh began to regenerate over the exposed ribs, closing the open wound in minutes. That's enough for now, Heo, said Thea, pulling away. We will heal the rest later. She needs to rest and regain some of her strength. Heo nodded and backed away from the calf, who continued to bob at the surface, eyes drooping closed. Heo asked the two siren women to submit to a cursory examination. They swam toward the walkway, and each let Heo place her palm on their forehead for a brief internal diagnostic before climbing up the ladder. Thea turned her piercing emerald gaze on Calandra. What went wrong this time? Calandra's tears mixed with the salty water on her already wet face. I almost killed her. So, thank you so much for joining me for my Facebook live reading of the Undine's Tear. I will be posting the video to my page right after this, and then in about half an hour or so I will be posting my own giveaway. So please check back on my Facebook page, Talina Winters, author, and yeah, thanks for joining me. Have a great day.